You happy, Brandon?
Yes, I'm very happy. My friend Jeremy, I thought he was coming to the airport today. I thought he said the 3rd when him and I were on the phone the other day. It's actually tomorrow he's coming in. So I turned around. I'm on my way home, and I'm like, and I swear this happened. When I'm sitting in traffic, I sit there and going, $20 says Nikolai Ehlers is about to sign with the Canes, and I can't go live immediately because I'm in my damn truck sitting in traffic. Holiday
That's annoying.
traffic.
Yeah.
But also, it's like the whole law of averages thing or whatever. I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, no, this is a good thing. If I hadn't made this trip, this motherfucker would have signed in Washington.
That's funny.
Everybody, you're welcome. I don't mean that. I don't mean that at all. BTS, what's up, buddy? No more yellow because we have Ehlers. Yeah, no, this is a good thing. Dylan Bollinger says now 2C incoming, hopefully. Yeah, me too. McTavish would be my number one right now. What about you, Sam?
McTavish, I mean, I'd make him my number one too. The thing is that if we don't get him, I do think there are other options out there on the trade front because right now with the signing of Ehlers, you have 14 forwards and 12 positions to fill.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, someone's going to have to go back the other way, and that would probably have to be KK.
I think Blake might be going too.
Blake, I could see going because, you know, the team's got like not a knock on Jackson Blake, but if you're going to rank the short guys on the team, he's number 3.
Yeah, he is. And I mean, also like with Blake too, you talked about value. That guy has lots of value.
Oh yeah, he's got great upside. He's going to be a tremendous player. It's just going to come down to a factor of like the Canes have needs and they don't have room at the same time. So it's like that's the reason why I think that unfortunately he's going to have to be the guy that goes back the other way. And, you know, as much as I like Jankowski as a 4th line center, if you trade him instead of KK, you can finally slot KK in the 3C slot and have your 4th line be your checking line with Jordo and Martinook and, you know, whatever combination you want to put there, Carrier maybe. And then it's like, then you've got a long-term, you'll have your top 3 centers locked up long-term, and acquiring a 4th line center is miles easier than the top 3.
Oh yeah, it is. I still think it's more likely they trade a guy like KK just because of that contract.
Salary standpoint, yeah. But I mean, if Blake goes out, like, so let's see how much cap space we have left now. I'm going to go on to Puckpedia because this should leave us about 8.5. Let's see here.
I'm on Puckpedia right now too.
10
I feel like I'm gonna
10.64. That's more than enough to get McTavish. That'll still leave a couple million left over. Because let's see here. They're like looking at it long term as far as McTavish goes.
So we have $21 million in cap space for next season.
Yeah, Nikishin's going to eat up part of that, though.
He is.
He's going to eat up a big chunk of that. Okay, so Mason McTavish is, yeah, he's an RFA without a contract. So, like, if they can do a sign and trade there, like they did with Keandre Miller and get this done, like, I'm so excited. It has been so long since this team has had a legitimate top 6. And you don't need to go get another winger right now. You know, Taylor Hall could, you know, fit into the top 6 just fine, but you've already addressed the other needs if you go get another center. So this is looking good. We're looking good.
You know, if I was general manager, what I'd probably do, I'm not saying this is what Tulsky or Dundon or whoever's going to do it. I think you could probably package 3 forwards, especially if you think Nadeau is ready for the NHL.
Yeah, it's just I think we'll have to. And I was saying this one. I don't know if. Oh well, yeah, you were watching earlier.
I was.
My whole thing with Nadeau. I think training camp is going to be very, very indicative of where his next step is, because it's like, okay, we know Badinka's not going to make the team yet. We know Legault is not going to make the team yet.
No.
Nadeau is, or Nadeau, not to confuse the pronunciation. You just said Nadeau. I said Legault, but then I had to catch myself going, did I accidentally say Nadeau? Because their names are phonetically similar.
Yeah, they are.
They're very similar. So I'll probably just have to John Forsland this and go with full names. So if Charles Alexis Legault is not going to make the team, which we already know he's not.
No.
Bradley Nadeau is about the only. Well, hell, it sounds similar when I use both. When I use first and last names, Bradley Nadeau is the only guy that's potentially getting looked at to make the jump right now.
Yes.
So
now here's the thing. I think when it comes to probability, he has the best chance. But if you're last season, we were projecting Nadeau or Unger Storm to make it, and out of nowhere, Jackson Blake makes the team. So
see, I always thought Blake was
going
to make the team. Griff will verify that. The thing that made me figure out that Jackson Blake was going to make the team, I was like, this is going to be a Warren Fogle 2.0 situation. But I remember it wasn't even video I saw of him. It was a picture of him doing farmer's carry, and the veins bulging out of this kid's forearms were ridiculous. I'm like, yeah, that dude's making the team. Rod probably saw that picture and like, yeah, that's him. He's on. Like, I can see that happening. But and Blake did make it on merit. Like, don't get me wrong. That was just one of those watershed moments where I realized I'm like, yeah, he's making the team. So I think that but yeah, Nadeau is like, he's kind of it as far as who would make it out of camp. Yeah.
I guess you could maybe name him as maybe like the Blake type of contender there.
Mm-hmm.
Artemonov, maybe?
Artemonov's not ready yet. I think he's got to adjust to the North American game. He's not like Nikishin, where Nikishin is going to be relatively seamless in the grand scheme of things.
His value's really gone up.
I think Artemonov definitely has a future on this team
of
some sort or another. I just don't think it's going to be yet. I think they're going to want him to get 1 year in the minors. That's why I'm saying it's like I'd rather go address the center issue now, because organizationally they're pretty thin at that position.
They are. And prospect-wise, too.
Yeah, and from up and down, it's basically Aho, 40 feet of air, KK, Jordo, Jankowski, and everybody else.
Yep.
So, it's like they need to address that. That was one of the reasons why I was so intent on the Canes maybe drafting Mason West. But if they go get McTavish, someone who can help them now, or anyone who can help them now for that matter, then that's fine. So if
would you trade Blake for McTavish straight up?
In a heartbeat.
Yeah, I would too.
I would do that immediately, even if it didn't have an extension in place, because he's an RFA. So you have some time to, negotiate stuff from there. Now, here's what I want to ask you as far as a contract for McTavish, because we'd have to get him an extension because he's an RFA without a contract. What do you think what do you look at giving him?
I look at the Stankoven contract because I think that's somewhat of a comparable, but he might. I'm just looking based on the market right now, especially for centers. I could see him getting probably maybe around $7-something million.
See, that's fine with me. 7.5. Because the Canes have got the money for McTavish. And it's like, if you round out the top 6 with Taylor Hall, you don't need another winger. And if you do want to get one at the deadline, that's a lot easier to get than a center. And then not to mention Nadeau might make the team and that problem might solve itself. So they're literally one transaction away from being in a really good spot. Here's
something that just came out with Ehlers. Empty Netters posted this, but as many as 11 teams made last-minute bids as things came down to the wire.
No wonder he took so long then.
But but in the end, it was always Carolina. He loves the fit, the commitment the team showed him from day one, and couldn't be more excited for the future. The Canes just added a phenomenal player and person.
Yeah, if there were 11 teams that threw last-minute bids in, it took a while probably to sort through all those. That doesn't surprise me, though, because like I was saying when I was streaming this morning, Ehlers is one of those guys that he's kind of a jack of all trades and a master of none, but he makes any team, theoretically, he makes any team better. He just happens to fit with the Canes more than anybody else who had the money to potentially sign him. Because I was talking to my friend Anthony, who's a really big Caps fan, and I was asking him, I'm like, hey, if you guys do get Ehlers, who do you think you're going to move out? And he was saying it was probably going to have to be Hendrix Lapierre, and they really like him. So that just shows how good of a position the Canes were in. But I can understand if he really got 11 offers, and that does not surprise me based on the type of player he is. Not pure offense, not pure defense. He's pretty well rounded. It's like he could make any team better in theory. So, and now he's coming to a team that's consistently better in the playoffs than the one he came from.
Yes.
That's why people are concerned with his numbers and everything. I'm like, Ehlers has never been on a team this good.
I know. And the Canes, I'm telling you, I don't think they're done. I really don't.
I don't either. Like, get a center, and I mean, if they're okay with having 4 left and 2 right-handed defensemen, go ahead and roll with that. But I don't think they're done back there either. I really don't.
They might be, they might not be done.
Yeah, well, see, here's the thing, though. If they did move out, okay, there's only one defenseman that would potentially get moved out now. Gostisbehere. That's it. That's the only one.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of too.
Yeah, it's like they're not going to move Chatfield out. He's too good at what he does. And Rod would lose his mind, and so would the majority of the fan base, and I wouldn't blame them.
I wouldn't trade Ghost, though, just because he provides sole offense to a team that kind of needs it, especially since you traded Morrow.
Yeah, but the thing about it is between Miller, Nikishin, and, depending on if, how him and his new partner work out, Slavin are all going to step their numbers up. And, like, the only thing about it is it's like people who are good at quarterbacking power plays are very, very difficult to find. That's why they are not the best 5-on-5, and they don't kill penalties, but they eat. It's like, okay, if Gostisbehere averages 14 minutes in a game, 6 of those are probably on the power play at least.
Yes.
Because he's out there, especially with the way the Canes are, since their top unit has to be kind of top heavy. If he averages 14 minutes a night, he's out there for 90 seconds of each power play. And he's on the emergency penalty kill list. It's like if one of the defensemen's in the box, he could go out there, especially if Walker's the one in the box. So it's like, Walker should not go anywhere because, that's a guy who could potentially produce 40 points if he's alongside Slavin. So, like, he could stay in the role he's in, or he can be in a more productive one. So that definitely shouldn't be it. So I'm wondering if the organization is actually embracing the idea of having 2 left-handed defensemen on the same pair.
Yeah. And I think you have to embrace somewhat of an idea of that, because I think if you just stick with, like, lefties have to play on the left, righties have to play on the right, you're going to hamstring yourself.
Yeah.
You just are.
That's why I was always thinking, like, is there some sort of way that they could move Burns off the top pair and, like, have him with Chatfield or something? Like, but but now they'll have
gone.
Yeah, now he's gone. It's like, but now it's like they have training camp to actually acclimate and figure this stuff out, but just something tells me they're not done. I've got nothing to back that up other than pure speculation on my part. But when I look at this roster as is, it's like they're 1 transaction, 2 maybe away from putting together a better team than the one they had 2 years ago.
Exactly.
All right, we'll get to some of the comments here. BTS says, let's hope for a 2C. Absolutely. Thank you for your sacrifice. You're welcome. Lax, what's up, buddy? Let's go, boys. And it's not an expiring contract, so you don't have to worry about him leaving. This is fantastic. Absolutely. Doesn't feel real. Yeah, it took a long time. J-Dub also says about fucking time. Now we need him a fucking 2C. Yeah, that's the next one. Pred, what's up, dude? Where you been? Hell, we could pick up Backstrom 36-year-old self for a 4C if need be. I don't think he can play anymore, though. I think his hip is too washed for him to be able to play, because, like, that injury was bad. That he had the hip injury.
I wouldn't pick up Backstrom, and honestly, like,
I think he's too slow anyway, even when he is healthy.
Yeah,
like, he's the best slow player, one of the best slow players in the history of the game, just because of how smart he was and how good his vision was. But, like, as far as keeping up with the Canes, that would be a little bit difficult for him.
Yeah, I just don't think that's a good fit in second. You're trying to make your team better, so I just don't understand how Backstrom, 36 years old, is going to make your team better.
Yeah, at that point, it's like, and then not to mention, it's like somebody's got to come out for another center. Somebody's got to be going back the other way. So we'll see what happens with that. Laxani says, you think we do it now or at the deadline? I'd rather do it now. Like, let's solve this, the center problem. I would rather get that done now, because getting a winger at the deadline is significantly easier. There's going to be a lot more of them available, and they typically will not demand as much of a return to get it done.
Yeah, but centers, I'm telling you, they're a lot harder to get than wingers, just because it's hard to move centers because of how valuable they are.
Yeah, I mean, you remember that haul we had to give up to get Trocheck?
Oh yeah, I remember that. Although I liked the trade.
Yeah, I did too. I mean, it worked out at the time, and he just ended up not staying. But it's like a lot of people were pissed about him not signing. He was never planning on staying. I'm like, that's pretty well known.
Yeah.
So,
and it turns out it worked for Florida too. Look at Lusterinen.
Yeah. Dylan Bollinger says, from what I've seen, I'd rather keep Janko, and KK would have more trade value anyway. Yeah, but at the same time, though, it's like KK's got more term. So if he's in the third line center spot, then you only have the fourth line center problem to solve. And that's a lot easier than. So basically, first line centers are basically you've got one way to get them, draft them. That is it. Nowadays, especially if the league expands again and the talent pool dilutes more, you're going to have more and more free agencies like this, and people are going to be locking up their top six forwards in general, but like they're really going to nail down their top line center. And Canes didn't even draft Aho to be a top line center. It's like Rod made him that. Like there was a need there. Victor Rask decided to go hibachi on his own hand in his kitchen, unfortunately. And then he wasn't going to work out anyway, as we saw, and he got traded anyway. That was one of the best trades Waddell made, if you ask me, was the Nino Niederreiter for Victor Rask one.
It was.
You kind of got to, at that point, you kind of got to like look at the, not just the now, but the later, like looking at the longevity of the lineup. That's why it's like, if you lock KK in and he can go play a role that I think that he's ultimately suited for, then, but as far as second line centers are pretty hard to get, not nearly as hard as first. There's not much fall off in how hard it is to acquire a third line center, but fourth line centers compared to the top three are a dime a dozen. So like they play important roles. They have a hard job, but as far as like, now if you lock Jankowski up to another contract because, he's extension eligible now, then okay, no big deal because he's in the last year of his deal. But I don't think that happens until KK goes out if that does happen. But if, having a team that is very defensively geared, having good center depth is a lot more important. And that's why it's like if you can have a third line center with a little bit of scoring upside like KK is, and you can let him fit in that role, because if you have him between, say, Robinson and Carrier or something like that, he's going to play much better. It's just KK is not someone who needs to be playing with skilled wingers. It's just not in his skill set, or high-skilled wingers, I should say.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. And I'd be fine with him being our fourth center. It's just you look at that contract, and it's just from a business standpoint, do you want a guy making $4+ million playing a fourth line center role? Some people might say no.
Well, that's why I bumped Jordo down, because the checking the fourth line needs to be employed like a fourth line. That's why you got to have Penny bothering you.
Yeah, I'm just
yeah. That's what I do. Like I'll have my hand over here petting Frank and everything.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm saying it's like, we're at that point where if we're going to stack the top nine and have three scoring lines and one checking line, and actually have Jordo, Martinook, and whoever they want to put on their right.
Carrier. I think it's Carrier.
I think it should be Carrier, absolutely. And so you have that line be. It's like, and it's also going to depend. That line's going to eat a lot of minutes in a game where you're up by 2. I understand that.
Yes.
But if it's dead even or you're behind, that's when Aho's line needs to be out there more. That's when a theoretical Mason McTavish line needs to be out there more. And then it's like, it's all about distributing the minutes. And then you have a game that's close, but maybe you want to put the third line out there for a few minutes more than the fourth. It's like that's the whole thing about it. It's just, there's no reason that you should be down by, let's say you go down by 2 in the first minute of the game. Jordan Stahl's line is not the one that should be out there pulling more than probably out of that period, like 6 or 7 minutes at the most, if you're talking just 5-on-5.
Yeah, I would agree. Now, what's frustrating that we've seen in the past is that line in terms of work ethic has been a much harder line in terms of work ethic than some of our top lines. Like I've always thought the guy that gives the most work ethic day in and day out is Jordan Martinook.
Yes.
And I'm like, if Aho could have that intensity like Martinook, he put up 100 points.
Yeah, and well, the thing is though, Aho's like not had consistent line mates. That maybe that's not going to be a problem now.
Yeah.
So
good.
if that happens, it's like I don't blame Aho for a lot of this, because he's not been insulated by the type of players he needs to produce like that.
But that's not an excuse either.
It's not an excuse either, but at the same time, it's kind of like, if we're going to expect him to be greater than a point per game player, he's got to have consistent line mates who can set up plays for him and finish on his passing, because he's taking the playmaking to another level. But it's like he can't do that with Jordan Martinook being on his left side. Unless it's against the Devils in the playoffs and Jordan Martinook just decides he wants to, be the greatest player that ever lived in that game.
Yeah, and another thing too, there are people that like Martinook, first line Martinook. I don't. And but the reason why is because I've always thought, you want all your lines to play a certain way. That's part of Rod's system. But at the same time, while you want them to all play a certain way, all those lines should have different purposes.
Mm-hmm.
If they're all playing the exact same way, you're not. I think there's an argument to be made for that. You're washing down the skill.
Yeah. Well, see, that was one of the things with why Jarvis got put with Martinook and Stahl so much, was because the roster wasn't good enough to be able to really kind of front load the top 6 or the top 9.
Yeah.
And you kind of had to go for that even distribution of skill. And, every game, you had to turn every game into a boxing match as opposed to trying to knock somebody out. So it's like, or a long drawn out boxing match as opposed to like laying somebody out. And the reason being was, the roster wasn't good enough. So it's like, okay, I have to have 4 lines go over the boards that can potentially compete. Can't front load, because then you nerf another line and that line's going to get walked.
Mm-hmm.
They're well on their way to that not being a problem. All they need is another center.
Yeah. And Jarvis with Stahl, Martinook, you look at the eye test for that. It's amazing. It really is. You look at the stats though, and this is a team. Yes, Brandon. This is a team that's very relied on stats and analytics. Mm-hmm. And I looked at it. Jarvis playing with Stahl and Martinook this past season had a total of 4 goals. 4.
Damn. Yeah, see that can't happen.
No, it really cannot. I'm sorry.
You can maybe put Stankoven down there if you want to have that same effect, but if Aho's not with Jarvis, you can't expect Aho to put up a ton of points. And the same thing goes for Jarvis. But now, there's 2 different ways you can go with the top line now. Ehlers, he's a definitive left winger. He can play the right, but he's going to be better off on the left, and that's what Carolina needed more anyway. Carolina's actually got a decent abundance of right-handed shots on this team. Which
is good, because
that's a good thing. It's good.
Yeah.
That typically doesn't happen. So it's for the top line, you can either go Ehlers, Aho, and Jarvis, or you can go.
Maybe that's what I would do. I don't know.
Well, if you put Svechnikov on the right side, he'll score more often. Mark my words on that. Every heat map of him indicates that.
I do too. Yeah.
All right, we'll get some more comments here. Thayer-Craft, bro, if we get a 2 seed, this team is stacked. That's all that's left to do. Other than the skeleton in the closet known as goaltending. That's so hard to address, though, man. That's literally the hardest thing to get taken care of. The second line center thing will probably be solved before the goaltending thing is, honestly. But that's something they really, really got to start thinking about.
Here's the thing: I don't think they do anything with goaltending. I just don't think.
I'd rather them solve the forward group first, because the defense is fine.
Yes, it is.
The bottom 6 of the forwards is pretty locked. They just got to round out the top 6, and then I think they'll be good to go. And then the goaltending thing is just so hard to solve. And at the end of the day, Carolina suppresses shots so much. You need a goalie that can stand on his head sometimes and make timely saves and bail you out occasionally, but you don't need Patrick Waugh or Marty Turco back there for this team. It would be nice, but it's not realistic.
Yeah. You need that goalie that can make the big saves, because you look at this team, while they do shot suppression very well, at the same time, they give up prime opportunities every now and then, because you can't expect a team for perfect defense. You just can't.
Right. And see, that's the thing. If you're going to generate chances against Carolina, they have to be perfect because of how well they keep teams on the perimeter and everything like that. So that it's like when teams score on super high quality chances against the Canes, and they're patient with their time in the offensive zone and everything like that, and have really good cycling, surgical passes, and create time and space, and they take a lot of time to do it before they finally get a shot on net, but that happens to be a really quality shot on net that goes in. That's no surprise. It's just every system has its drawbacks, but teams know going in that's their best chance to, it's like you're not going to win dump and chase against the Hurricanes. It's not going to happen. You have to make clean entries, and you have to make the most of your time while you're in the offensive zone. And best of all, or best for the other team, you would want to have clean entries with numbers because the Hurricanes are not going to give you many clean entries to begin with. So that's why it's like you see these teams that are a lot slower than the Canes, but they're a lot more deliberate with, how they do neutral zone transition and how they manage to retain the offensive zone, but they don't do it so much through hard work, but they do it through more so through like passing the puck and cycling it and everything like that. And, get the Canes to run around in their own zone and get to the interior of the ice and then shoot. That's about the only way that they lose. About the only team that can really out forecheck and out dump and chase the Canes is Florida. But they do they beat everybody. So, that's a different discussion. Let's see what else we got here for
I'm just wondering what the Lions might be now with Ehlers. I really wonder.
He's gonna be with Aho, I'm pretty sure about that.
He could, but he could not. Imagine an Eller. I'm not saying he's gonna be a center for us.
Mm-hmm.
But imagine an Ehlers Stankoven as your center, and Svechnikov maybe.
Ooh, that could be good. Side. Yeah, and it's like it wouldn't be the first time the Canes took somebody off the wing and converted them to center, i.e., Aho.
Yep.
So that can totally happen again. That's what I was hoping would pan out with Natchez, and it didn't. And Jarvis, if he's going to play center, he's got to get his shoulder sorted out because, taking a face off here and there with his rotator cuff being busted is one thing, but it's his right rotator cuff that's messed up, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, see, that's going to be – he's a right-handed shot. That's going to make him taking face-offs frequently a lot more difficult because, you really have to torque your bottom hand on the stick. And you've noticed when Jarvis takes face-offs, how low he gets. I mean, he's already low to the ground as it is because he's not that tall, but he gets really low to the ice and he slides his bottom hand down really far. He really, really relies on how much he can overpower his opponent and use that low center of gravity so well. So there's definitely some stuff to be done there. If he gets his shoulder fixed, then that can be talked about. I mean, he's playing just fine with the rotator cuff bothering him, but if he starts taking a bunch of face-offs, because, if he's actually playing, being the second line center, you're talking 15 to 20 face-offs a game at a minimum that he's going to have to take.
Yeah.
Especially since he's an all situations player.
I think he can do it. It's just he's small, but at the same time, another player that's small that's really good at being a center, Braden Point.
Yeah. He is. And, I remember the people have compared him and Jarvis at times.
Yep.
So, that could be done. See, one thing that I was hoping for in the event, I knew this wouldn't happen, but I was thinking about it. If Ehlers had went to Tampa, I'd have been like, if they're going to make that work, they got to dump some salary. I'd give up a lot to get Anthony Cirelli.
Yeah, Anthony Cirelli would be good.
Anthony Cirelli would be great. He would be a game changer. But, it's like McTavish doesn't want to play a diminished role, and he shouldn't have to. He's a good player. So, that's who I think the Canes, really need to make phone calls on. We'll do some more comments here. Megan says, I got caught in a hailstorm heading back to the office, but Ehlers is a Cane, so I can't complain. Ooh, that's no fun. Cavery says, my team is finally being a team. Yeah, for real. Brad says, be safe, Megan. And call Lego Cal. CAL. Yeah, that's a good one. Ryan Jones says, remember when you were crazy on the Moose? Yeah, I regret that. That was really, really fucking stupid in hindsight on my part. I thought that was going to work out so well, though. I think we lost Sam. Let's see if Sam can reconnect. I think we lost him because he's staring at me very lifelessly right now. I think he lost connectivity. BTS says Ehlers has basically been a Cane for 3 or 4 years. It's just finally official. The dude that they've been talking about. Yeah, we lost Sam. Yeah, they've been talking about Ehlers being a Cane since 2019. I remember they tried to trade him here to the Canes, and the whole thing about it was they said, there we go. We got you back.
I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, bad connectivity. And by the way, everybody, there's storms in the area where I live all the time. So if I up and lose connectivity, do not be surprised. I'll jump back on. But yeah, it's when I can. But yeah, I remember back in 2019, this is how long ago it was. I was on Reddit a lot back then before it went totally to shit. And I remember there was a thing that Winnipeg offered Ehlers for an unnamed right-handed defenseman. We all know who that was. That was Pesce that they wanted. And the Canes said no. And it was literally just a 1-for-1 trade. And I kind of wish they'd pulled the trigger on that. But we also didn't know at the time that Pesci was going to fuck up his shoulder like he did. And that's not his fault.
No, it's not. And plus, I thought he was. I mean, you remember the playoff series against the Devils? I thought Pesci was one of the best for the Devils.
I did too. J-Dub says Tulsky cooking so far. Yeah. And now that we know that he had, I kind of figured he was going to have a bunch of more offers on the table, like a few more last minute offers, but 11 teams. And that probably wasn't all of them. There were probably a few more than that. And they were just like, shooting their shot. And, his agent probably was like, never mind. There were probably more than that, if I had to guess. Thayercraft says give him 7x7 in reference to McTavish. I'd be good with that.
Yeah, I would too.
Glad that the wait is over. Yeah, me too. Guess at 8x7 if it's a sign and trade. We could
see that too.
Yeah, we definitely could give him 8. Brett says 7.75, 7 to 7.75 would be great for McTavish. I'd be good with that. Cavery says if we get McTavish, I might cry. Capitals fans pretending they wouldn't have paid the same amount, calling it an overpay. Okay, so let's just go ahead and address this right now as far as how the media and other people's fans are going to address this particular thing. If Nikolai Ehlers had went to Washington or Tampa for the exact same amount of money in the exact same term that Carolina, I think we lost Sam again, for the exact same amount of money and for the exact same amount of term that Carolina gave Nikolai Ehlers, they would be praising that signing as stunning, brave, innovative, game-changing, and calling them cup contenders. But since the Carolina Hurricanes, who for whatever reason are the bastard child of the NHL, because apparently, a bunch of fans that you say that this team does not have, and people who don't care about hockey apparently strong-armed Peter Karmanos into moving the team down from Hartford. Apparently, they were the ones who made that happen. So it kind of doesn't make any sense, that rationale at all. And calling it an overpay is stupid because Ehlers was always going to get somewhere between $8 and $9 million. Yeah, I'm not sure what's happening.
I don't know what's going on.
But yeah, it's like, they're going to call it an overpay because he didn't go where they wanted him to go. That's all it was. It's the same thing with Mike Rupp saying that he thinks that Keandre Miller can be a top 10 defenseman in the NHL, which maybe he can. I don't know. But Mike Rupp tends to change his opinion based on what sweater they're wearing. And that also kind of pisses me off, considering you're supposed to be like a professional hockey analyst that played the game for a long time.
Yep.
In an era that it was very hard to play. But how long until he walks that back? Because he's not a Ranger anymore. So that's the whole thing. Of course, they're going to say that it's an overpay because Ehlers came to Carolina. If he'd went to Washington on the exact same terms and the exact same contract, they would talk about how great of a deal it is. The hockey media just hates the Hurricanes, but at the same time, they'll claim that they don't have real fans, but they'll also blame the fans for Peter Karmanos choosing to move the team from Hartford to Raleigh. But they say we don't have fans, but apparently we're the ones who strong-armed Peter Karmanos into moving the team. I was only 6 years old. I wasn't strong-arming no goddamn body. Hey, can I have ice cream? No, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, media's going to gripe about stuff regardless of the Hurricanes. I mean, I do agree with that. The only thing I probably will get frustrated with the Hurricanes is if they can sort of control what the media says.
Yeah.
Sort of control.
Well, the only way that that's going to happen is if they it's going to take winning a cup, and even then, if you remember how badly the team was scrutinized when they won the last cup. Oh, if Buffalo hadn't been missing 4 of their top 6 defensemen, because the Canes didn't have any injuries at all. Doug Weight totally wasn't hurt, or, like we didn't have a rookie goalie in net or anything like that.
Well, I kept hearing from the 06 Cup that, well, if Edmonton had Dwayne Rollison healthy, not, what was his name? McInerney, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Play, they would have won the cup because remember, Rollison got hurt.
Yeah. I mean, I've just heard all that stuff before and everything like that. And you could easily say that if Sam Bennett hadn't ran over Anthony Stolarz, that Toronto would have won that series. Doesn't make it true.
Yeah.
Because
Eh,
the thing is, the longer a series drags out, the more likely it is that Florida's going to win it.
Yeah, and I hate playing the what if game anyways, just because I'm like anything can happen.
Yeah, I mean, I could sit here and what if about if they'd ponied up Natchez to get Matthew Kachuk a few years ago. No point in having that discussion, though, because it didn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. Now, granted, I have made like what if episodes. If you remember, like the what if series from Marvel that they're doing,
Yeah,
I've done a couple what if episodes. I think that's fine, but
yeah, but that's just a for fun thing. But it's
it
like I'm not
is.
going to sit here and say like, okay, it's like me and my friend Anthony still get into about this 18-19 playoffs. He said, it's like, well, if we'd had TJ Oshie, we would have won if he hadn't gotten injured. And I'm like, the Canes had a bunch of injuries too. Half the team, okay, Fogle was a rookie. Manalainen was an unconventional in the lineup.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Greg
Patrick
McKegg.
Brown, Greg McKegg.
Yep.
Half the fucking checkers were on that team, and they still won.
Well, I mean, it just showed how good Brindamore is as a coach. Like he was able to take a team that was honestly probably a middle of the pack type of team. I mean, not bad to get a good draft pick, not good enough to get in the playoffs, but he made it to where they got into the Final Four. So
yeah, and then the funny thing about it was like, I remember some of them saying back then, man, if we still had Barry Trotz, you guys would have lost in the next round. Barry Trotz got swept. Great coach, horrible GM so far.
So far, yes.
Yeah, it's
now
like the first season's always rough.
I think it gets a little bit overrated with Trotz, and I'm willing to give him more of a window just because I don't like to give GMs 1 year to prove something. I feel like you kind of need to give them like 4 years to prove something. I think 4 years is good.
He didn't walk into the best situation in Nashville. It wasn't terrible, but like it's not like he was. It wasn't like Jim Rutherford walking into the Penguins.
Exactly.
Because like that dude didn't have to do much.
No, he really didn't. I mean, he got all those free agents with Shea and the others that are blinking in my mind, but Stamkos, Marchessault, but it didn't gel. Funny enough, that was a team that constantly won against the top teams of the league, but lost to everybody else.
Yeah, that's funny how that always happens. But that's how you know that like you don't have as much to work on when that happens. I mean, it's the same thing with San Jose. It's like they lose to like teams that are like third in other divisions and everything, but then they go and they beat like the team that's like leading the NHL on some
They're going to be
night.
a dangerous team. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but like, and they're playing their cards right with drafting. It's like when I compare San Jose and Chicago's rebuild side by side, San Jose is killing it. Chicago is behind. Like, and it's like I got nothing against the Blackhawks. I mean, it's pretty well noted that I don't like Connor Bedard at all, and I think Macklin Celebrini is better than him, like by a lot. Too. Yeah, it's like I piss people off when I say that, but I'm like, I remember watching Macklin Celebrini play at the World Juniors. I'm like, yeah, this dude's miles ahead of Bedard. He maybe doesn't put up the points, but his game is so complete.
Yeah, and another thing too, when it comes to rebuilding, I mean, yeah, you have to have a focus of getting those young players, but you also have the focus of getting the right veterans to play with those young players. Chicago's just letting the whole team run wild with just young players. The only veteran I see probably is Teravainen. That's
Nick Foligno.
Or Nick Foligno too. Yeah, but that's that. I mean, that's it. You got to have more veterans than that.
Well, I think it's only a matter of time until Teravainen ends up back in Carolina. You remember my theory about that. I just have a feeling that's going to happen. Like not this season, but maybe next one. I think it'll be the last year of his deal. And, Carolina will like give up a 4th round pick or something to grab him and take him on a playoff run. I have a feeling they're going to do it. I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm not saying I think that's a good course of action. I can just absolutely see them saying, who can we bring in that we already know fits in the system and everything? And they'll bring him in. I don't think he'd be playing in the top 6 or anything, but I'm just saying I could see it happening. Let's see what else we got.
And Teravainen, he's great. My only thing with Teravainen is I feel like there are times where he just doesn't care when he's on the ice. Kind of like Victor Rask.
I think that's just his demeanor, though, because he's got the most stoic looking face I've ever seen in my life. Dude never smiles. Never frowns. No. It's just blank fucking. It's like, you ever seen that T-shirt that has like all of Darth Vader's emotions on it, and it's just his
Yeah.
helmet over again? That's what Tara Biden reminds me of. Like that, he's just Victor Rask was the same way. The dude could have scored the Game 7 overtime winner in the Stanley Cup Finals, and he might have smiled. He had the most stoic, yeah, I don't give a fuck look every time that he scored.
That will see because of what happened with Victor Rask. That's why I've just a tiny bit of concern with Tara Vinen.
Yeah. All right, we'll get some more comments here. Dylan Bollinger says, who backs up the power play now? Nikishin, I probably think second unit, especially if Ghost was to go. So that's the whole thing. That's why it's like trading Ghost is risky, because I don't think Nikishin's going to get handed the keys to the power play on day one. He'll definitely start off on the second unit, because quarterbacking it at the NHL level is completely different than what he's used to with Ska.
I don't think he should quarterback power play 1. Listen, like, I think he is a very gifted player. I think he's going to be I mean, I love it if he was like the next Makar type of player. He very well could be, but regardless, he's a rookie. Slowly move him into the system. Don't put him right into the fire.
If you can avoid
don't do that.
If you can avoid it for the first couple of months of the season, his minutes need to all be 5-on-5.
Yes.
And then, like, and the only reason he was on the penalty kill was out of necessity during the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. Because
Now,
we didn't have any defensive depth.
Yeah, everybody was, Walker and Chatfield both got hurt. So it's like, now, once he starts okay, so here's what I'll say. If he does go on special teams out of the gate, third
Power
unit
play
penalty
2.
kill, power play 2. That is it. Now, he'll adapt pretty quick, I think. But, we got to have a little bit of patience with the kid. And, it's like, if he does play with Slavin as opposed to, say, Miller playing with Slavin, I'm fine with that, because he'll have someone good to teach him. But they only play together 5-on-5 for the start. They won't kill penalties together, I don't think. Now, maybe that could be completely different. For all we know, he'll come out of training camp and be totally ready to take on all these extra minutes and all this extra responsibility. That can happen. Yep. I just don't think that the team is well insulated enough, and there's enough depth on it now to where you don't have to rush his development like that. You can take your time. So maybe you can go that way with it. Time will tell.
Now, I don't think he's going to play over Nikishkin. That'd be crazy. But that's why I like the signing of Mike Riley. You need that depth. You just need it, man.
He's a 7th guy, though. See, that's the one thing that did worry me, though. It's like, because like on a not so deep team, he's a serviceable third pair shutdown guy. But now I have to sit here and wonder, I'm like, does this mean that somebody else is still on the way out, though?
No, I really don't think it is. I really thought that signing, especially with just 1 year, it's just like, hey, we need someone to come in case there's an injury.
Yeah, and Mike Riley can do that.
Excellent player to do it.
No, that's an excellent 7th defenseman. Mike Riley is like, it's like he's not washed up at all. He'll fill that role really well. And in the event that someone does get injured, he can slot in just about anywhere on the right side and be fine. So Zach,
I wouldn't mind
says,
it.
Hey,
I wouldn't mind if they got another depth defenseman, another under the radar signing, because you're going to need it probably.
I think what they'll do there is like they would look at pulling Charles Alexis Legault or Badinka up later in the season. Badinka definitely needs some time. Legault's got, a year in Chicago under his belt, so I think he's getting close to where maybe he could do that. Brad says spot holder LMAO. Been mad busy with work too, trying to get back active. Yeah, I'm happy to see you again, pal. I was wondering where you've been. Ethan Reese says, I know you mentioned McTavish, but other RFA on teams with money haven't extended. Velarde, Voronkov, any dark horses you're thinking of? I'm going to look more at both of those guys. I actually don't know a ton about Voronkov, but Gabe Velarde I do like.
I love Velarde. Out of Winnipeg.
Okay, Sam, give me your Gabe Velarde thoughts then.
He is a pure power forward, in my opinion. He makes those big strides to the net. He's a gifted goal scorer. Another right-handed player. And I think he'd be perfect. But the thing is, with Ehlers gone, I don't think Winnipeg's going to be looking at trading him at all.
No, because they already lost a top 6 forward. They're not looking at giving up another one. Voronkov I know a little bit about, but like I said earlier,
Columbus,
I don't know.
Right?
I believe so. My brain is pretty fried today. Yeah, it's Columbus.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I know who I'd really like to have from Columbus, but it'll never happen. We lost Sam again. All right, I'll do some more comments real quick while he reconnects. The Kane says KK Blake and maybe a pick for 2C, aka McTavish. That might get it done. I don't know. I think that would at least, not get the phone hung up immediately. Fly Henry Fly says, do you think we're going to try a bridge deal for cheaper or pay Nikishin a lot long term? They're going to pay him. I think that they're just going to go ahead and get him locked up like they did Stankoven. I wouldn't be surprised to see if he got an extension. I don't want to say that they'll do it right now, but I could see like halfway through the season, they just go ahead and get him inked and get it all taken care of. Red says, Dylan, I liked Walker on the power play. I don't know how well he'd do QBing it, but he's a solid option to be there. So the one thing about, and you guys know I really like Sean Walker. The one thing that I would think that Sean Walker, as far as quarterbacking the power play, he's got a hell of a shot. It didn't show as much this season as I would have liked. Where he really excels at is the skating, because he can really walk the blue line and open up lanes for passes and everything like that. Kind of get the penalty killers out of position, open them up, and help work to the interior of the ice. And he can either shoot the puck himself, shoot for a rebound, shoot to score, or distribute a pass to someone who's open because he walked the blue line and got the penalty killers out of position. Sean Walker definitely could work out on power play 2. I don't know if he's power play 1 good, but he definitely, I want to see him get more time on. No, I was just answering. Let me see where to go. But yeah, the possibility of Walker being on the power play, I think he could do it. I would prefer him not be on the top unit if he quarterbacked number 2, because Walker can shoot, but I think where he would make a bigger difference on the power play, and let me know if you agree with this, is because of how well he can skate. He's going to get penalty killers to open up and create a lot of time and space and a lot of good passing lanes. But at the same time, it's like I think he would, get the penalty killers out of position enough. And he's got a wicked ass shot. He just didn't shoot the puck much this year because the possession player and the offensive guy on his pair was Ghost. So he was, playing safety valve for him. But if Walker gets to open up his offensive side, I think that could work out a lot better.
It would be better, especially if your partner is possibly with Jacob Slavin. But honestly, your guess is as good as mine as how those combinations are going to go. There's so many combinations.
Yeah, if a defenseman does get moved out, it's going to be Slavin. Or no, oh my God.
What?
I'm sorry.
Brandon!
If a defenseman does get moved out, it's going to be Goss to spare. Fuck, what have I done? No, it's just you had mentioned Slavin, and that was in my mind then, because I really want to see Slavin and Walker play together. But if a defenseman goes, it's going to be Ghost. Like, I don't want that to happen, but it's kind of like, we'll see. But let's see. Fly Henry Fly says, yeah, I think Rod tries to put the stall line a lot when we don't need it. I think it was really evident in the Florida series. It was on there way too much during the Florida series. That being said, though, that line was one of the few that could handle the physicality that Florida was throwing out and not totally crumble. So I understand in that situation why they were out there, but that's why it's like getting bigger, stronger, power forward type of dudes that would benefit. It's like Marco Rossi wasn't really going to help. I mean, he would be an upgrade over KK, but like him be significant help in situations like that, no. The team that they're building right now is not one that, like, you think about, would this team win games in overtime in the regular season? Would this team win in shootouts? You don't have to worry about that anymore. Would this team win the first 2 rounds? You kind of don't have to worry about that anymore. What you have to worry about, would this team go to the Eastern Conference Finals and beat a team like Florida? Not even just Florida, but Florida itself. That's the point that they're at in the build. And the best part about it is it's early in the window, because essentially the window is open as long as Aho's contract. That's the way I look at it.
I say Aho, Jarvis, and Slavin's contract.
Yeah, and they're locked up for their expirations all line up, and I guarantee you all 3 of those guys are going to keep playing after that. It's like Aho will be okay playing in a reduced role when he's older. Jarvis can do it too. Slavin, it's like, I think when his current contract's up, you can just keep bringing him back for like 1-2 seasons at a time, and he'll be fine. Like, the way he plays, he'll be okay.
He'll be okay, but I mean, I've always said this: when it comes to Father Time, eventually it's going to catch up with you. That's what. Same thing. Same thing I've said about Burns. I'll probably say the same thing with Slavin if he turns 40. Just saying.
Yeah. It's just if Slavin was playing like if Slavin is at that point, like this is way down the line, and he's like only pulling 14 minutes a night and just killing penalties and stuff like that, I think he would be okay at that age because
I
one,
do
he's
too.
not super physical, and two, when he blocks shots, he does it the ability in which he blocks shots, he knows how to gap up on him really quick and use a stick and everything like that. So that's a lot less wear and tear on him because, it's when you block shots when the puck has time to build up speed. Those are the ones that hurt you. But if someone just completely winds up for a clap bomb and you're within a foot of them when they get it off their tape, that doesn't hurt so bad. It still hurts, but it's not anything like, Shea Weber dropping a clap bomb on you and having time to reach 102 miles an hour before it hits you.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what's interesting with Slavin, especially like I would say probably the first cup, especially the first game against Florida, he was physical.
Yeah.
And I wonder if it was just because of that history with Sam Bennett there.
He turns it on when he needs to.
He does.
It's like he doesn't go out there and lay hits for the sake of laying hits. He doesn't finish hits that are going to take him out of the play for a second just to lay a hit. If he throws a hit, he did it for a particular, he did it for a strategic or tactical reason. So it's like, for example, that hit he laid on Taylor Hall in the playoffs a few years ago. The only reason he laid that hit is because he knew that Carolina would have possession of the puck right after he landed that hit because he had him perfectly behind the net. He had nowhere to go. So he laid him out, and there was no one there to help Taylor Hall. In that situation, let's say another Bruin is nearby, Slavin probably doesn't lay that hard of a hit because he's worried about the puck getting on the tape of another Bruins player. So it's like, and I've noticed that with a lot of the hits that he lays. Like, who was that one he laid on Vancouver a few years ago that was just brutal? I can't remember, but he laid somebody in the Canucks out, and I was like, damn, I didn't know I know he can do that, but damn, that was good. Let's see.
I know remember when we had Brett Pesce?
Yeah.
There was one time, and it was at home. It might have been against Minnesota, but he went off on a player.
Yeah, I remember when he beat the shit out of Mark Scheifele. That was pretty awesome.
That might have been it. I was like,
he
holy
beat
crap.
the fuck out of Mark Scheifele. I'm like, I didn't know he could throw like that, but yeah, he clobbered Mark Scheifele. He beat the shit out of him. He just turned around, threw his gloves off, and that was it.
I was happy to see that, actually.
Oh, I was too. I was like, yeah, I wish I'd been at that game. I was at home watching that. I'm just sitting there and going, bro, I know Pesci's a big dude, but damn, this motherfucker can throw. Holy shit. Fly Henry Fly says, love that point about Aho. The only players I think he's been absolute 100% with is Tavo, Gensel, Jarvis, and occasionally Natchez in overtime. I agree. If Svechnikov was on his right wing, I think that they would be a lot better. Tim Bowman says, could KK Blake in the first get Tage Thompson from Buffalo? Maybe if Buffalo has a really, really bad start. That's the one way maybe that can happen.
Yeah.
Probably Svets instead of KK or another first and prospect. That might be the case too. Thayer says for sure goaltending needs to be addressed next offseason. Yeah, because it's like Freddie's able to play now, but we don't know what the circumstances are going to be, when the season's over. Brad says, yeah, Thompson's too valuable, but for KK, they need to do something big in return. Yeah. Bernie McDonald says, I think Blake is going to be a stud. I do too. It's just, It comes down to room as far as room and needs, as far as the Canes go. Like, I think he's an incredible player. It's just like, when it comes to players that are sub 6 foot, he's number 3 now on the team.
Yeah. And I think his potential is probably a 50, 60 point player.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a 70, 80 point guy, but 50, 60,
I don't either.
Absolutely.
And
I think Stankoven could be 70, 80 point guy.
Yeah, he could. I think where Blake tops out at, bottom 9 ceiling, top 6 ceiling, but more of a middle 6, 50, 60 point winger, I think is about where he's going to, and don't get me wrong, that's incredibly valuable, but I think that's about where he's going to top off at. And I kind of thought that even when I was watching play at North Dakota too. So BTS says, host gives up his numbers or Ehlers changes, I take the latter. Yeah, Yost will give up his number. Ehlers is going to be a mainstay on the roster. Yost is a 13th forward. So
another depth signing. So you have 2 depth guys, and I would say Jankowski and Jost.
Yeah.
Ideally, you want Jankowski to be, I think, your 7th forward.
Yeah, if you can get it to that point. But, dude, he's also played so good. It's kind of like if we move KK out and he's the 4th line center and they extend him, The only reason why I'm not okay with doing that is because then when Jordo retires, you got to replace the third line center, and that's hard. That's my thing. That's why I want to keep KK.
It could be, but at the same time, I think acquiring a third line center, kind of like what you said earlier, it's a lot easier acquiring a third line center than a second line center.
Yeah.
So
that's the whole thing. That's why it's like, man, that's a difficult decision. And, you know, it might sort itself out. So
it really might. Heck, he's the guy that we just drafted at center. The guy that I told you about in the live stream earlier.
Ry Apkin.
Heck, he could be that second line center guy.
Yeah, he'll need some time. And then not to mention they gotta, according to like just his personality and everything, they gotta rein him in and everything like that. Yeah. That'll come with time. So it's like there's also that, but that's a long time from now. So
it is.
And then if you get Mason McTavish, then maybe like, you know, that gives you a little bit more runway to be able to deal with that particular situation. Tage is also very cheap for his value. Yeah, I think he's only making what, like 7.2 or something like that.
I'm checking right now here.
Yeah, me too.
Buffalo.
I'll race you. 7.142, 857. So just under 7.2. That is incredible value for him. That is great. Let's see what else we got here. I think Sam froze again. Oh, wait, no, there. Oh. Okay, you're back.
Thank God.
Yeah, you froze for a second. Might be me, but I don't think Hall fits very well with this team like the guy, though. I think he fits great.
I think ideally you want Hall to be on that third line scoring.
Hall should be depth.
Player.
Yes. Yeah. Hall is at that point in his career where his experience is really valuable, and he's still pretty fast.
Yes. And he's a big guy, too.
Yeah. See, ideally, you want Taylor Hall to be a guy who eats a decent amount of minutes 5-on-5 and is on the second power play unit to add some lethality to the second power play unit if you can top off the top one. Now, that's become a possibility because with your top unit, you're talking as it stands right now. Aho, Svechnikov, Jarvis, Ehlers. Let's see, Gostisbehere, Aho, Jarvis, Ehlers, and Svechnikov. That's more than likely your top power play unit. Now you can really start building a lethal second power play unit, and Taylor Hall is one of the pieces for that.
Heck, Hall, Stankoven could probably be on that Stanky be on that second power play unit. He's going to get him some goals with Hall feeding him pucks.
No, that'll be great. Levy Lato says we just need a goalie who is good at stopping breakaways because our team defense will limit all other chances. That's a good point. That's a big reason why I believe in Kochetkov and his eagerness to try poke checks. Yeah, he's gotten a little bit of that out of his system, but the second half of the season, man, he was just brutal.
I don't know with Kochetkov, man. I'm
jury's out. I was hoping he was going to take a step this year, and for a while he did. For a while he did. First half of the season, he was fine. When he came back from the injury, though, that he did to himself ultimately in the game in Columbus where he got the concussion, like that was his fault. The way that he leaned out of the net and whoever ran him over. And I was kind of like, because I'm sitting there seeing him do that, I'm like, Cooch, like, dude, I like you and all, but that was dumb. You literally injured yourself. Like that was stupid. No other goalie does that, leans that far out. Like I understand he was trying to seal the post, but I don't understand why the hell he stuck his head out and it's like all the fucking way over here.
Yeah, but again, at the same time, as frustrated as I might be about Kochetkov, you just don't know.
No.
He could catch on fire in the playoffs. I'm hoping one year that happens for the Hurricanes.
That would be good for his confidence. And did you notice one other thing? I will give you a treat in a minute. Lay down. Lay down. Dad's busy. He will get Nikolai Ehlers treats as well. Celebratory Nikolai Ehlers treats. But damn it, you made me forget what I was going to say, rodent. Shit. Remind me of what I was saying. Before my dog fucked it up.
You were talking about the second power play unit, right?
No, I remember what it was now. Okay, so you remember when Kochetkov had to come in that game where Timo Meier didn't totally on purpose try to injure Freddie Anderson?
Yes, I remember that. Mm-hmm.
He played really well in that game, and I think that's because Kochetkov, when he turns his brain off, he's fine. When he doesn't think about stuff, he's fine. I think that him coming in relief in that game, he didn't have time to think about shit. Whereas I think what affects him, and I don't know the guy or anything, but this is just my personal assessment of it. Okay, he goes to the morning skate. He's in the starter's crease. He knows he's starting the game. He's got all day to think about it. And the hamster wheel in his head is just
Yep.
Now, in that game, it's like he's like, oh fuck. And, he didn't have time to think about it. He just had to throw his mask on and get out there. And then he played really well. I think that the less Kochetkov thinks, the better off he is when natural instinct just kind of takes over and he plays a little bit more reflexively. And I think that like the best thing they can do is just like put him on a sedative after the morning skate, and then he wakes up in the crease before the game starts, just so he doesn't think about shit all day. Like, I'm not saying literally do that, but like if he can just kind of like, I think that's what, when he gets, for lack of a better term, bored, when Carolina's over there holding the offensive zone for minutes at a time, and then play comes back the other way, he goes cold a little bit, and then he gets scored on. I think that's part of what's up with him.
Yep. I do too.
Chance says great move by the Canes getting Ehlers, but let me guess, they should trade Sean Walker. Velarde would be awesome because he knows Ehlers. Yeah, that would be cool, but like Winnipeg's not going to give him up since they just lost Ehlers. But I think they know what needs to be done next, of course. I would love a second line with Svech, Stankoven, and Jarvis. Only thing about that line, even with Svechnikov on it, it's kind of small.
Yeah, I'm not biggest fan of that line.
Kochetkov is pretty good at breakaways, but I also notice he lets in a lot of soft ones, mainly because he is such a unique goalie. He's definitely a unique goalie in this day and age. If Kochetkov had played 20 years ago, or hell, not even that long, more like 10, aggressive-ass goalies like him, like Tim Thomas, for example, that was not all too uncommon.
Yeah, it really wasn't.
Ehlers is keeping number 27 confirmed. Yeah, I figured that. Bernie McDonald says, my crystal ball come December, a contending team has goaltending issues. We trade Freddie for a center.
What?
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, we'll see. I'd rather that center issue just get addressed now. Like, it would be cool if before we got off the stream, Mason McTavish was a hurricane, but that's not going to happen.
No.
Never mind on my last questions. Kane posted he's 27. Yeah. Brett says, I wasn't even alive, LMFAO. They moved a year before my birth. Strong arm from the sack. Great signing and moves by Tulsky. He's still got one more to go. Yeah, McTavish, not Walker. Unger, Stormer, and Nadeau could potentially play into that 2C role. I still don't think next year is the year. I think year or two after that would be the best chance. So I don't see Nadeau ever playing center. It's just not in his game. Felix
They tried.
They tried Felix Unger-Sorm at center, and he didn't last long there.
He only got 20 points in the AHL, so I'm kind of tampering my expectations with Unger-Sorm.
Yeah, because if there'd been any room in 23, 24, he would have made the team out of camp. That's how good he was doing. And then he goes to the American League. And, that's one of the things with European players adjusting to the speed and more so the physicality in North America is kind of like where their ceiling gets lowered. That may be what's happening to Unger-Sorm now. I hope it's not, because he's a good player. But
I
do
he's
wonder.
19.
Yeah, that's the other thing to consider. He was the youngest player in that draft when the Canes drafted him. So there's a lot more, evaluation to be done as far as how good he's actually going to be. But I think that like you can be a little bit more patient with Unger-Sorm than you can other prospects because of his age.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
He might still pan out, but I personally don't see a center right now. That's just me. Who would you go after at 2C? For right now, McTavish. And speaking of, the next comment here, I don't really care for the idea for McTavish as a 2C. If we're going younger, give me Shane Wright. Older, consider giving up that arm leg for Larkin or Middlestat. Oh, yeah. So if out of everybody on this list, I'd give up half the farm for Larkin. Like, hands down. Like, I would do that before McTavish in a heartbeat. But right now, as far as realistic options, I think it's McTavish.
Yeah. Shane Wright's interesting, though. He's an interesting player.
He's not fast enough. Actually, I want to look this up. Give me a second. I actually want to see what his edge data says, because now I believe you in everything, but now I just want to know.
Who's not fast enough?
McTavish. Yeah. As long as he has a decent amount of 22-mile-an-hour burst, I think he'd be okay.
If If he is, yeah, I think he'd be okay too. Because I have realized this when it comes to Brendan Moore's system, you have to be a good skater.
That's part of the reason why KK
Oh
stands out in a
gosh.
bad way.
Like you have
Okay.
him, and also if you remember, like before we got like Keandre Miller, it's so funny. We always bring in a new defenseman every like what 1 to 2 years or something. But
Yeah. Let's see what
uh,
we got here.
look at our previous defenseman that we got, Jake Gardner. He was a disaster because he couldn't skate.
Yeah.
Dahan, he couldn't skate.
No. Let's see. Top speed 21.81. So he's a little bit faster than KK, I think. Actually, I'll tell you what. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna do something right here because speed is such an imperative thing for the Canes. This is actually a good discussion to have.
This is interesting.
This is interesting. I'm curious to know. So it looks like KK's got a little more speed than McTavish does. So, wait, let me go back up here. KK tops out at 22.26, McTavish at 21.81. It's just KK doesn't look that fast because he skates like a newborn horse. So it's like,
And he's big.
he's
too.
big
You
too.
have
He
to
covers a
realize
lot of ice really quick. It's, his stride extension like gives him a little bit extra length. But C's making a good point about this because, like, I mean, I think McTavish is fast enough, but like, that's one of the first things that starts to go away when you get older, though, is your speed. That's a problem.
Compare McTavish to oh man. Use
Voronkov, you want to try that one?
yeah, let's do that.
Because I love this edge data stuff. I just wish they'd add some color to the heat maps and eventually this will load. Or it won't. Hold on. Voronkov 22.44. That's pretty damn good. So we're talking about him being a pretty big dude.
Compare McTavish to Jordan Stahl.
Yeah, because Jordo has slowed down a little bit. Now, this is actually like an intriguing thought here. Because I thought McTavish was fast enough to play, but like that's one of the first things you got to look at bringing somebody into the Canes is speed.
Yep.
See, Jordo's actually faster than he looks too for the same reason that KK is. Son of a bitch. He's still clocking 23.15. Fuck, he does not look that fast. Like, he's slow to get going. Like, his first couple of steps, it takes him and that's a common thing with bigger players. It takes him, first couple of steps, it takes him a little bit to get going. But once he's, like, moving and, the wind's to his back and everything, and he's got the inertia, he's got some wheels.
I wonder. I'm just trying to think of players that could be slow on their team, but we're generally a fast team, so it's kind of hard to.
Even our slower players are pretty fast. Well, you know what's really funny? Watch this.
Yeah,
This is something. Well, I'm going to show you one other thing, and then we'll go back to this. No, it didn't. Wasn't supposed to do that. Okay. Why is this thing not cooperating with me?
I'm gonna have to use this edge thing more.
It's
really
pretty
cool.
awesome. I use it all the time, especially for like my pre and post game shows. I posted this one day just to kind of indicate how like Burns had kind of fallen off.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that. Now that doesn't seem like a big drop there, but it kind of is.
Yeah, that is a big drop.
Or you want to see one that's really just kind of sad? Svechnikov before and after the ACL. I think he lost 0.79. miles per hour, because people forget Svechnikov had some damn wheels before that. Now, he looked a little bit better in the playoffs because I think he adjusted his game knowing that he's probably never going to be that fast again. Like, you can get close to that speed again, I think, but as far as actually building like what he used to be able to do, I don't think he's going to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's interesting because I just pre-recorded a video for Svechnikov that's coming out in August. So,
But yeah, like, and then look at this here. Yeah, and this isn't me hating on the guy. This is just data. But
yeah.
for comparison's sake, you know, there was someone that I had a disagreement with that said that Jordan Stahl was slower than Brent Burns. I'm like, no, the fuck he is not.
No, Stahl's faster.
Yeah. It's like, and I showed them the data. I'm like, no, that's quite the difference once it comes up here. Now, I expect Jordo to be faster. He's a forward, especially like a shutdown type of forward. I expect him to have some speed, but like, now that's
do a comparison on this because I thought he was really slow with us. Dylan Coughlin.
Oh God.
Remember him?
Don't make me type that fucking name in, but okay. Fuck him. Let's see who else is
Mason McTavish. Compare him to Mason McTavish.
Yeah, just for the hell of it, we'll do that.
Because that's going to gauge with me to see how slow McTavish is. Okay, McTavish is quite a bit better. Okay, good.
Yeah, and the other thing to consider with actually, let me pull up Coughlin's. Wait, no, I want the most recent season. There we go. I mean, if he played an NHL game at all. He didn't. Oh, wait,
nope. No. Oh, he did.
No, it went back to 23-24. Let me see if it... Okay, I'm clicking 24-25. Let's see if it pops up. Coughlin was a disaster.
Oh, he was. But he had a great preseason, if you remember.
Yeah, I remember saying, I'm like, he ain't going to replicate this shit. 21.62. That surprises me for him because he cannot skate.
No. You know who also couldn't skate? Jake Gardner.
Jake Gardner couldn't skate worth a damn. But I think part of that was because of his injuries. Like, he was never an amazing skater, but like when he messed up his back, that like did a lot to him from there. All right. So we'll do... All right, I want to... Okay, let's try and take... Who else?
Jake Gardner.
I don't think he'll even be on here. He was done playing before they started collecting this data because Edge only goes back to 21-22.
Dang it. Well, hold up here. I'm going to look up Jake Gardner's career here.
Yeah, and while you do that, I'll get to some more comments. Okay.
Tw 2020 to 2021 was his last season. So, yeah, it's been some time.
Thayer Crest, do you realistically think that a 2C position gets addressed before the start of the season?
I do.
I think so. The only reason that I think that it won't is because that's a very hard thing to address. It won't be for a lack of effort. I can promise you that. Ethan Reed said this might be copium, but the bombshell of the Miller trade tells me that Tulski has many irons in the fire, and we don't know about this team is not done. I don't think they're done.
Yeah,
there's going to be something else happen.
There has to be. You have too many forwards to play in 12 positions.
Lightning NC says that looks like finish. I don't know. Levy, can you translate and tell me what the hell this says? Like, because I don't know what this is. I appreciate the comment, and I've seen you in here before, but I don't know what you're saying. Slavin laid out. Yeah, Wyatt Johnston. That was one. I remember that. Not this past playoffs, but the one before. Yeah. Tripp mentioned Larkin as a potential target on A Gold's Pod's thoughts. Okay, so I did see a post about that.
It's going to take a lot.
Yeah, that's what you're talking about. Svechnikov or somebody like that going back the other way for that to happen. Like I said, if Svechnikov goes to bring in a center, I'm a lot more okay with it, but I really don't want to trade Svechnikov. I'm
more willing to trade Blake than I am with Svech.
Yeah. it's like Blake, KK, and a high pick might get that discussion started.
Remember, we still have Dallas's first round pick for 2028.
That's true. Actually, that's going to be a good thing to look at. Give me 1 second. I'm going to pull something else up here.
And we have another third from them too. So we have
'Cause I wanna
draft
see-
capital plus 2 extra forwards.
Speaking of draft
we have
capital, I'm gonna pull
lots
something
of
up.
resources.
I'm still not getting used to seeing Mammoth instead of Utah Hockey Club every time I scroll through this stuff. I like the name though, and I like the logo. I think it's cool.
I love the logo. Oh my, it's beautiful.
Where is the? I'm looking for the. Okay, here it is. Let's see. Holy shit!
What?
Look at us in the 2026 draft. We only have a first and 2 sixths. And then for 2027, one. Oh, wait, hold up. Here we go. I think we lost Sam again. All righty. We'll wait until Sam gets back before we do some more here. I'll go ahead and take that off of there. Where was I in the comments? Here we go. Austin Holmes says, like Steve Dangle says, if you're a goaltender, tend the goal. Yeah. So Carey is already out of the lineup, and we have him for 5 more years. Or am I wrong? No, he'll probably slot in with Jordo and Martinook. Carrier is kind of essentially a 13th forward because of how much he gets hurt, but really damn good one. But yeah, he probably stays on the stall line. If he is in, then E-Rob is out, and it's the same problem. E-Rob's probably going to play with, like, I guess he'll play with KK and Hall or something. I don't know. It's too early to tell. Let's see. And then, as far as Ehlers' speed goes, someone asked about that. I'll show in a second because I actually have that up here. McTavish is 22. I don't know how that makes us older. Yeah, Carrier, Hall, or E-Rob will be scratched, I believe. Carrier is going to probably get injured, unfortunately, because he's very injury prone.
Although I like Carrier, and I think we should keep him just because you need that type of forward.
That physicality that he brings and everything. Because I thought he was great in the playoffs. He only had one bad game, and that was game 2 in Washington, but the whole team was bad that night. It's kind of hard to play well though when Tom Wilton was blatantly allowed to leave his feet and hit Svechnikov in the head with absolutely no consequences whatsoever. That's why I want to get somebody on this team who will actually beat the shit out of somebody.
Kevin Westgarth.
Yeah, and get him to come out of retirement. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tony D says, just got home from work. What did I miss? Nikolai Ehlers is a Hurricane. Do Shane Wright versus KK. All right, we can do that.
That's an interesting comparison.
Okay, I'll do the latest season for both of them.
While you're doing that, I'm looking up Shane Wright's
Let me refresh this.
contract here.
Oh, but here with the draft capital and everything while I'm thinking about it. But yeah, 2026, the Canes have their own first rounder. Or I'm sorry, Dallas's first rounder and 2 sixths. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do their best to hold on to the 2026 first rounder and then trade it back. I think they're going to do that. As far as 2027 goes, let's see, it should be own pick. Dallas is third. Own pick. Chicago's 5th because we got that from trading the first round pick at the draft. Own pick, and then 2028. They traded the Dallas one away for the first round of that, and they've got their own. Or I'm sorry, they have the Dallas first rounder from 2028 and their own pick. Own picks all the way through the rest of the draft. So, yeah, that 2026 first, I think they're going to hold on to that unless they just can make a blockbuster deal with it. They're going to trade that back to get a couple of those picks back. I can guarantee you that's already going to happen.
Yeah, I think I do that too, just because more darts to throw out the dartboard.
Yeah, and then on top of that, if they're going to give up a first, I think it'll be their 2027 or one of the 2028s because they've got 3 between those 2 years of
Yep.
first rounders. They got one in 27, one in 28. And now let's see, who were we going to compare next?
Wasn't it Wright and McTavish?
Wright and McTavish. No, this is all over the place. 22.91. That's actually really fucking good. When you're
That's
that close to
really
23, that's.
Ooh.
Let me see. What were their points like? 19 goals, 25 assists for 44 points in 79 games for Wright. McTavish, 22 goals, 30 assists, 52 points in 76 games. But I would argue Shane Wright was on what was ultimately a worse team. Because Anaheim would have made the playoffs, or at least they would have been close if their special teams didn't suck.
Yeah. I would not mind either of those players.
And Shane Wright's got one other thing that would benefit the Canes. He's a right-handed shot.
Yeah, he is. But at the same time, you could say we already have Jarvis right-handed, Stankoven right-handed, Blake right-handed, but you never know.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as a right-handed center, though, like that would be like I'm not going to say that like we should trade for a right-handed center that's not as good as a left-handed one available, but like that would just be an added bonus. Take this off the screen for a second, get some more comments. I would have never guessed KK was that fast. Yeah, he's a lot faster than he looks. I mean, a lot of them are. How fast is Jordan? There's no fucking way KK and Stallard that fast. Check Ehlers speed. Okay, so as far as Ehlers speed go, I've already got that available right here from where I did the stream about him the other night. I got a bunch of shit about him available actually. So Ehlers 23.30, 94 percentile for top speed. 22 plus mile per hour burst, which is also above the league average, which puts him at 91. 20 to 22, he has 142, which is almost double the average of by position for.
Yeah, he's fast.
Yeah, no, he's got a ton of speed. There's not going to be a problem in that regard. That's what I was saying. When Ehlers gets older and you drop him into the bottom 6, he's going to be what? Clocking at 22.5. He'll still fit. 18 to 20 mile per hour burst. Don't worry about that one because there's nobody in the Canes organization that they're ever going to bring in that's going to be clocking mostly 18 to 20 mile per hour bursts.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've had done a bunch of research on Ehlers for like over a year at this point, saying that like that's who the Canes need to go get if he's available.
And we got him.
Because like I said before, and I had many witnesses to this, and Colby McLam actually made a post about it. I said months ago, I was like, if I were a betting man, Ehlers is going to be a Hurricane. But a lot of people said that because it just made too much sense. So Burton Oaks says, LOL. What's up, buddy? Tony D says, I wasn't here when you answered this, but what does Ehlers signing mean for Blake? Nothing yet. But I definitely think if there's a trade, Blake is part of it, especially if it's a big trade. Levy Lato says, Lightning NC said, good morning, sirs. Okay, I thought that was finished. Okay. Yeah, I figured. Lightning NC says, we love our Finns around here, don't we, folks? Yes, we do. You're slowly getting replaced by Russians, but I know you always hope for KK to just put the stick down and skate for a summer, but I kind of hope he would just train boxing for a month or two since he's one of the few Canes who's ready to go. Yeah,
I wouldn't mind that.
When he beat the shit out of Alexei Torpachenko, that's one of my favorite memories, like recent memories with the Canes. We can't trade the 2026 first since it's conditional. That's true.
Yep.
It was right to KK. Okay, yeah, we'll do that one next. Give me 1 second. I'll get that pulled up.
Right to KK.
For the comparison.
I think Wright's going to be faster.
Wright's going to be significantly faster because he's damn near at 23 miles an hour. He's actually not that much faster. He's got a few more 22 plus mile per hour bursts and a lot more 20 to 22. So acceleration wise, Shane Wright is better.
Yeah, he is better.
Oh, actually, since I see it mentioned in the comments. Yeah, actually, I'll tell you what. Let me catch up on these, and then I'm going to do something. I'm going to have everybody guess what Larkin's top speed is before I look at it, because I actually don't know off the top of my head. Dylan Bollinger says apparently Trip on the Adam Gold show said Larkin is a potential trade target. I hope so.
Yeah.
J-Dub says, why do we have 7 goalies? Because I think that the Canes have been so thin at that position for so long. They like made sure that wasn't going to happen again for a long time. What's Hurdles and Carlson speed? We'll do that one in a second. Vegas needs to cap dump. They have
No, they
over
do
8
not.
million.
No, they do not.
They don't.
Because you look at Puckpedia, they have
brutal.
not put Alex Petrangelo on LTIR yet.
And he's going on there.
Once they do, they'll get under the cap.
And Alex Petrangelo is someone I'm not going to make fun of for going on LTIR because he's legitimately fucked up. Mark Stone going on it under the circumstances he has the last 3 years are questionable. And honestly, I just don't like him. I think he's a prick. Alex Petrangelo, I have a ton of respect for, but Mark Stone can still go fuck himself.
I love Petrangelo.
Petrangelo's awesome. All right, so we need AHL goalies, and now we have them because Caden Primo's a really good third goalie.
And we signed the guy from Russia.
Oh, the one that's really good friends with Svechnikov. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So everybody in the comments, I'm going to take this off the stage for a second. I'm going to pull up Dylan Larkin from this season, and you get a shout out if you guess this right. What is his top speed? Sam, do you have a guess?
I'm
not looking yet.
I'm gonna say 22.83. We're getting some comments here.
Okay. Yeah, I'll let this go for 2 minutes, and then I'll go through them all, and then I'll show you.
Dang, someone said 29 miles per hour.
No fucking way.
That's like human speed. Let's compare the Flash.
Can you still see me?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm
Uh-oh.
This is weird. What the fuck? There we go. All right. Okay, we'll see what all we got here.
I saw 2 of you for a second there.
That was strange. Okay, so we'll go through. So we have these speeds here. Tony D says 22.53. Brad says 24.34. So Ehlers gets 27. Yost is getting a Rolex. I would hope so. I mean, no, it's just I'm sitting here thinking about how optimistic I was Rantanen was going to stay when he bought Rosovic that watch that he had to go out of his way to get. And I was like, and then he decided to stay for reasons that basically were not his own. Yeah. But I digress. Fly Henry Fly says 23.94. He didn't restrict me, so second guess is 23.4. He's no McDavid. He can fly. Then I'll go 23.36. Because who was it that said?
I said 22.83.
You said 22.83, and then there was one guy in here. I think I lost the connectivity to. No, it still says I'm on X. I just can't see the comments from there. Yeah, someone said 29. He's fast. He ain't that damn fast. I don't think there will ever be an NHL player that fast. If anybody is skating that fast in the NHL, they're on PEDs and they need to get tested fucking immediately.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So pulling it up now. Give me 1 second. Yeah, because I can only see the comments from the YouTube side now because X dropped out for a second, but apparently I'm still live over there. So 22.81, Sam. You were 2/100ths off on your
Oh
guess.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
You were that close. But I mean, it's pretty insane. That's still really damn good. And, you know, he's not just speed. There's a lot more to his game. Alrighty. Let's see. Let's get that off of here.
Whew.
Yeah, Cavery was pretty close, too. All right, boys. So I don't think I really have much else to discuss at the moment. I'm just going to go drink a bunch of water so I can get in my window so I can eat, because I only have a 2 or 3 hour a day window where I can eat, and I'm going to watch the Braves probably lose again.
How are they doing?
Not good.
Really?
Not good at all. No. Starting the season without Acuna and Strider and losing 7 games, and then Profar popped hot for PEDs. It's just perfect storm of bad shit. If Larkin comes, what number does he get? See, that's a good question, because
at least 8 million. At least.
No, I think he's talking about his sweater, because Larkin's already signed for a long time. So
I didn't know that.
So Hall's already got 71, and he's definitely not getting 17. But and in international play, Larkin tends to wear 21, and that's what Nikishin wears. So I think maybe he just might have to pick a new one, because I don't think he's going to walk up to Alexander Nikishin and say, "I'm taking your number," and Nikishin look back at him and go, "Fuck you, say," like that. That's a good question. I'm actually not sure.
Number 9.
No, 9's retired.
What?
Gordie Howe played his last game with the Whalers, so no one's ever worn 9 on the Hurricanes.
I thought someone did. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, that's the reason why nobody wears 9. It's unofficially retired. Just like 3 is not officially retired for Steve Chason. And, you know, it's like, even if they don't actually retire Jordo's number, no one's going to wear 11 again.
They need to retire Slavin's number.
Yeah, Slavin's number will get 20's going to get retired too. So, it's like, come to think of it, the only 2 players who are retired strictly on the basis of the Hurricanes are Rod and Eric Stahl, because Wesley's number was retired based on what he did as a Cane and as a Whaler, and same thing with Francis, which they can unretire that. You know what? Larkin can have 10. Unretire 10. Larkin can have 10. 30 is also unofficially retired for Cam Ward. Yeah, Larkin can have 10.
Go ahead, retire number 30. I don't understand why they don't do that. I would.
I mean, it's just we can only retire a number so fast, or it's going to be like that episode of Futurama where all the Mets players had 6 3/4 and like fractions and shit for their number. But I think it's I think we're well on our way to where it's like they're basically going to like unretire numbers and just have the banners up and say you can play because it'll have been so long, and like everyone's going to start running out of numbers. Like Montreal, Detroit, like the original 6 teams in particular, is going to get to the point where they're like, well, now what the fuck do we do? We're out of numbers. I guess we're going to put decimals on their backs, or like, you know, what number do you want? 7A? Like, I don't fucking know what they're going to do. Yeah. But eventually that might have to happen. The one number that will just truly never be worn again is 99. Like that no matter what happens, 99
I agree
will
with
never
that.
get worn again. Yeah. Who is the fastest skater on Carolina? I'd actually have to like go through and look at the speed of every single player to figure that out. If I had to guess, might be Stankoven.
That's what I'm thinking too, Stankoven.
Because that little guy's got some wheels. Pretty much everybody on this team is fast. It's like, I think from the fastest skater to the slowest skater in terms of the forwards, there's probably not more than like 0.6, 0.7 of a mile per hour difference. 73, that could be a good number for Larkin. Yeah, I like that one. But yeah, 20 and 74 are definitely getting retired one day. That's inevitable. I'm trying to think, are there any other numbers that are, I mean, 14's basically unofficially retired as well. Justin Williams, even though he wore 11 the first time.
I was about to say that's interesting because he's wore 11 and 14.
Yeah, and the Canes were the only team he wore 11 with, because 14 was taken when he got there the first time because Kevin Adams had that number.
You know what was interesting is it took me a while to accept that Jackson Blake was wearing number 53
Because of Skinner.
Skinner, yeah.
Yeah. I liked Skinny, but I'm glad we moved on from him when we did. Trying to think of who else. Well, actually, you know who actually had the fastest burst speed this year, now that I think about it?
Natchez?
No, it was Slavin. Remember?
Oh,
When he busted
yeah.
his ass that time and got back and he had like a 24 mile per hour burst or whatever it was. He's not like consistently the fastest guy, but as far as like who recorded the highest speed of everybody on the team, that was him this year. And Sam dropped out again.
Did I really?
No, there you are.
Oh.
But
Okay.
just in the event though, we're going to go ahead and unless you got anything else you want to talk about, I think we're done with news for today.
I'm pretty much. I'm looking at Slavin's edge stats here.
Yeah, I think he had a 24 mile per hour burst.
Yes, he did. He had 24.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was, what was it? 24.19. Damn. Yeah, I remember it was he back checked on somebody and caught them and made an amazing defensive play. And I'm like, you know, I knew that he hustled to get back there.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that like he was in McDavid speed territory, albeit for 2 seconds at the most.
Yeah, same here.
But like that just shows how elite of a player he is. It's just like it took him being on the world stage for it to finally start getting recognized. And there were still people trying to say, oh, well, he's basically like there was some idiot with a Mark Messier profile picture of all things that said that basically he was just a fifth goalie and he never skates the puck out of the zone. And I'm like, tell me you've never watched Jacob Slavin play. He does zone exits all the fucking time.
Yeah, he does.
Like, all right, boys, we're going to call it a night. Sam, thank you very much for joining me. This has been a lot of fun, and it's also been a good day. The Canes have had a relatively successful offseason, and everybody remember, it's not over yet. You got Stankoven signed. You got Keandre Miller, and now you've got Nikolai Ehlers.
Ehlers. I don't know how you...
It's Ehlers.
It's Ehlers? Okay.
Yeah. So you are one transaction away from having a team that can really, really push it in the playoffs.
Yep.
More than they already have. Who that is, I don't know. We will see what the team does. But at this point, the Canes are in the driver's seat of their future a lot more than they were last season. Because you remember how everybody was melting down last offseason saying it was the end of the world. And I told I posted some of them about like, hey, everybody calm down. Like we knew this was going to happen. Or did you want to go ahead and sign Shea, Pesci, and whoever else and turn this into a retirement home in 5 seasons?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it too is just because you knew there were core players that were leaving. Mm-hmm. So, and that was tough. It was really tough seeing Shea go, Teravainen go. I'm like, man, this sucks. Pesci.
Yeah. See, I was actually really surprised Teravainen didn't stay. But he wanted to, and apparently they told him that they were done with him. But one more comment here from Brad. Have a good evening tonight, boys. I'm off to Sling Pizzas for the entirety of PD. Oh, and by the way, Brad, when the new FPHL team gets there, I'll come to a game and we'll hang out because I've actually been in that building a bunch of times. When they had the Twin City Cyclones or the PD Cyclones, whatever their name was, we used to go there to watch them play against the Fire Ants. We would drive from Fayetteville to do that. So I definitely would like to see that building again. Because I've not been in there in a long time, unless they built a new facility for it, which would be really cool. But I've been in there before. So a lot of the SPHL arenas, actually, let me think. I've been to Richmond when they had an SPHL team, Fayetteville, obviously, Winston-Salem when they had a SPHL team before they got an FPHL team. South Carolina, we went to PD and somewhere else. And then I went to see the Fire Ants play multiple times in Pensacola when they were playing against the Ice Flyers. But
Pensacola, Florida?
Yeah. I used to be stationed there. So like anytime that the Fire Ants came in, I went to watch them play there.
My sister lives there.
Yeah, I actually really liked it there. Desiree and I, when we were looking at places to live, we actually like considered going to Destin because I like the Panhandle because it's like Alabama type of culture, but Florida weather. And I really enjoy that. Like the Panhandle is basically Alabama. It's in Florida state limits, but you won't go anywhere without like Crimson Tide and Auburn shit all over the place. So it's like, and no shit. And I'll tell this before I call it a night. And this is, I wish I would have taken a picture of this, but it wouldn't done me any good because it would still be on my BlackBerry. That's how long ago this was. This is like 2010. I was going somewhere for something. I don't remember what. Me and a bunch of my buddies just took off for the weekend from the base. And I get there in this one gas station. I stopped to fill up my old 2001 Xterra. And I go in there and I just happen to notice this. Job applications. No shit. The last line on it says, are you an Alabama or an Auburn fan? Please only check one. And there was no third option. There was no write-in, nothing. Legitimately on the job applications that they had at the gas station. That's how it is there.
Wow.
Yeah. All right, boys.
Yeah,
I will see
I
y'all
gotta
later.
go.
Take care, buddy.
All right, take care. Bye.
Peace. All right, guys. Thank you for joining me. I very much appreciate it. If there's more news, I'll try to hop back on tonight. I'll be busy the rest of the week, though. So if I do anything, I'll probably just make a quick video on my phone or something like that. But thank you very much for joining me. Canes have had a really good offseason so far, and it might not be over yet. So we'll see what happens. Take care. Enjoy 4th of July. England, have fun going to work tomorrow.